So I said good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And Happy New Year, everyone. My name is Elly, and I am your service associate today. Reverend Matt will be presenting our message this afternoon. Our opening words this afternoon are by Sylvia L. Howie. Like Janice, no, we're not there. We're not there.
Okay. Somehow we forgot the prelude. So let's, if you're okay with that, Michael.
It wasn't my fault.
Yeah. We'll do the prelude and then we'll do the words of welcome.
Okay.
But there was, yeah, we
all right.
It's all right, yeah.
It's not my
Everybody was talking.
No.
The pre-prelude and everybody was talking.
Am I okay now? We bid you welcome on this first Sunday of the new year. Like Janice, we gather with part of us looking backward and part of us looking forward. We gather on the edge of the new year, saddened by our losses, cherished by our joys, aware of our failures, mindful of days gone by. We gather on the cusp of this new year, eager to begin anew, hopeful for what lies ahead, promising to make changes, anticipating tomorrow's, tomorrow's twice, and tomorrow's. We invite you to join our celebration of life, knowing that life includes good and bad, endings and beginnings. We bid you welcome. And so I just want to welcome you to our LCUUF Sunday service. May you find here what you are seeking. If you're new and you'd like to receive that newsletter and other emails, please talk to a member of the welcome team or write us an info at lcuuf.org. And now would members of the welcome team please raise your hand, please? Not me. Now also a special welcome to our visitors. If you're visiting with us for the first time or have returned or reconnected with us after a long absence, we invite you to say your name and tell us where you're from. And if you're on Zoom, please introduce yourself in the chat box and it will be read aloud in the fellowship. We'll start with the people in the room, and Carol will pass the microphone around.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Leichter. I'm recently re-arrived here. I'm now living here permanently. My last place of residence was Vermont, but my home is in California in Joshua Tree.
Hello. My name is Lourdes, and my name is Lourdes Noriega. I was born in Mexico and have lived in the U.S. most of my life. Most recently, for the last 5 years, I've lived in Tucson, Arizona, and before that, I lived in San Francisco for many, many years. So I'm exploring the opportunity to possibly move here. I have been here for the whole month of December and hope to come back in the summer this year. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wanda Morris. I'm from Vancouver, Canada, staying here for the winter.
Am I going to get you on camera?
I'm willing to play the game.
Okay, very good.
Okay, so my name is Mark Wallace, and my name is Mark Wallace, and I come from California with a banjo on my knee, and I was born in 29 Palms, California. I lived in Santa Cruz, and I lived in Oregon, and I moved to Colorado, and it seems too loud. That's all. Oh, I can see me. I can see what I'm doing. God, that's cool. And I came to Colorado, and I flew in from Colorado to here to see Sean, because Sean has become a permanent resident in this town. So, and come on up, Rich. It's your turn. Yeah, Rich, the three of us went to high school together. And we were business partners. Is Richard Cunningham and...
Yeah, good morning. Yes, Mark and I were business partners back in high school. Ran a Rich Mark lawn and garden business for 5 years. Anyway, grew up in California in Whittier, and since college and that, I have lived in Japan and have been a resident of Hawaii for the last 45 years. We live in Hilo, Hawaii, the volcano island. Thank you. Glad to be here. So we're joining Sean. This is our 75th birthday get-together. So, los tres amigos viejos.
Okay, let's see if there's any visitors on Zoom. Claire?
No, we have no visitors today on Zoom.
Okay. So welcome to all our visitors and newcomers, both in person and, well, not on Zoom. Here at LCUUF, we offer a wide variety of services and various topics presented by our members, outside guests, as well as our minister, Reverend Matt Alspaugh. We hope you will return to sample this variety of thought and belief. The chalice will now be lit. Okay. Our chalice lighting words today are by Deborah Burrell. Fire consumes and casts a bright light. May our chalice flame consume our regrets of the past, our fears about the future, and our worries about today. May it light us for a path of joy and peace. Now, not yet. Now, having lit our chalice, let us sing these words together.
Kindle this light in celebration for the life that we share.
And this is the time in our service where we can briefly share our joys, our sorrows, our concerns, and our milestones. Because there is power in the sharing, and we hold each other in community. Just a sentence or two will be sufficient. And we will start with the folks in the room, and Carol will pass the microphone around, and then later give those on Zoom a chance to type in their joy, but if there's nobody in, okay.
Hi, I'm Patty, and I just have a little joy. I've been wandering the world for the last couple of years, but I got back from visiting my family and friends in North Carolina 2 days ago, and I just had the feeling finally that I'm home. So.
I saw a hand here.
Oh, I don't have to turn around her. Hi. I just want to acknowledge 3 people. Laura Timer is a very close friend of mine, and she suddenly passed December 17th. I followed her through her journey, and I hold her high in my heart. And then this morning, I got notice of another long-term friend, Susan Weaverling, who just passed on the 29th. And I'm not really in grief, but in deep respect and memory of 2 souls that have really touched my life. And the third one that's the most important to me is my mom, if she were alive, would be 100 years old today. So I remember my mom. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tim. I'd like to have your thoughts and concerns for my wife's mom, Esperanza Cortez, in the Dominican Republic, as she's struggling with many issues in her latter years here.
Hi, I'm Devora, and I can't let this pass. This is the time of year when people who live in the northern countries, counties, states, whatever, like to come visit, and I feel fortunate that I have quite a few friends who are snowbirds who are arriving almost as we speak. Some have already come and some are coming, and I have to share this even though it's 2 months early. There's the good possibility that my sweet daughter will be here for 2 months. Wow. Which usually she comes for 5 days, so it's a biggie.
I guess you could call this a concern, but I also think it's a wake-up call. Somebody that I volunteer with died unexpectedly and the body wasn't found for 7 days. Okay, so it was a mess. And I bring this up because if you haven't registered with the end of life at the Lake Chapala Society, you might just want to go there. It doesn't cost you anything, and it takes care of those kind of unexpected surprises that can happen in life.
Are there any joys and sorrows that were shared on Zoom this afternoon, Claire?
Yes. We have a joy from Susie Lindemann. My Costa Rican best friend, Ana Miranda, is now visiting me for 3 weeks. For over 40 years. She just added that. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Okay. And this candle from our care team We like to represent the joys and sorrows spoken and witnessed today, as well as those we hold in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. Let us share a moment of silence. As we know, the work of our fellowship within these walls and beyond takes our time, treasure, and talents. Now is the time in our service for our offerings. As we pass the basket, if you are new here today, or if you're struggling to hold things together, please let the basket pass you by. Your presence is more than enough and is a gift to us. Please know that we give all the money collected at the service to an organization providing service to our lakeside community. For the month of January, we will be donating the basket to Tepewa Comunitario Centro in Chapala, which is considered one of the poorest neighborhoods in the state of Jalisco. And the description is on the monitor. I think Michael is still on. May this offering sustain and grow the life and work of this congregation. We give these gifts in love and in hope for a better world. Now, Michael. Oh. Our opening hymn is For All That Is Our Life. This hymn is by British Unitarian minister Bruce Fendlow. Know how the hymns invite us to give thanks, not just for the good in our lives, but also for sorrow, pain, and loss. Please rise in body or in spirit to join us in singing. We'll sing all 4 verses. Today's reading is by speaker and writer Ozan Varol. We all have stories we live by that aren't fixed truth. They're just old scripts we've been following without realizing it. If you tell yourself travel is exhausting, you'll only notice the hassles, the delayed flights, the cramped seats, and you miss the little joys along the way. If you tell yourself you're awkward in social settings, you'll tense up before conversation even begins, missing moments that could have been easy and fun. The point isn't to force yourself to love every rainy day or magical turn into an extrovert. It's about creating space. Space to question the stories you've been living by and experiment with something new. You're not committing to anything forever. You're just saying, what if?
No, it's my time. So, we're just over the cusp of the new year. We've just hit another tope on the road of life, and our ride has bottomed out as we pass into 2025 and step on the gas. For what we hope will be a better or at least a different year. This is January, and it's a good time to put our Janus faces on. January, Janus, right? We're to look both forward and backwards on the year past and the year to come, both the past and the future. Now, for some of us, many of us, it's about setting goals, participating in that peculiar ritual of making New Year's resolutions, and then breaking them a month or two later. For others of us, it's a time for reflection, a time to reconsider the stories we tell ourselves about our lives. I've been redefining the story of my early career life. That career was a large part of my identity, certainly back then, so the story that I tell myself and I tell others is important. As some of you know, my first career was as an electrical engineer. I worked for the phone company. More specifically, I worked for Bell Laboratories. And I was kind of young and arrogant in those days. And while I knew that working for Bell Labs was a prestigious opportunity, somehow I developed the attitude that they were lucky to have me. An attitude which probably showed and didn't help me in my work. So I floundered around for the first few years trying to find my place, find out where I fit. And at the same time, the whole Bell system was trying to find its way as well. 2 years after I started to work, the telephone monopoly was broken up into regional phone companies, and Bell Labs was broken up into several parts as well. While most of my coworkers lamented this corporate sea change, it couldn't happen fast enough for me. To me, Bell Labs seemed hopelessly hidebound and bureaucratic, stuck in the past and resting on its laurels, while all the hot, new tech work was happening in small startups in places like Silicon Valley. I wanted that. So when Liz and I decided to move west, I decided to reinvent myself, to use that then trendy buzzword. I returned to school for a master's in business administration, the hot degree at the time, and went to work for a startup company in Boulder, Colorado. That would be the first of a string of jobs at tech startups, all of which, save for one, died in infancy. During that time, I had a few opportunities to return to visit my old stomping grounds at Bell Labs to develop business partnerships. It was eerie just being there. I noticed how I had a powerful, even repellent gut reaction to even being in the buildings where I had formerly worked. I had developed an aversion, something like negative karma, to this former part of my life, as if there was nothing worth remembering from that phase of my experience. How true are the stories we tell of our lives? What is true anyway? Naively, we may think we have our personal history as a completely factual compilation, like a biography. A biography that we can carefully craft from true memories, known facts, and recorded data. But that we can put this together as a history book of our lives that is every bit as objective as the history books that we studied in high school. Wait a minute. I think most of us here have come to realize that those school books contain quite a bit of bias, especially the history books, though I wonder about science in Texas. And I think we realize that part of higher learning, usually in university, is learning to read and compare the different versions of history and noting the bias that exists and exploring why it is there. And our own stories, our own histories will also have their distortions and biases too. What do we make of those? Perhaps these stories too can have different versions. Consider the narrative arc of these stories that we tell about our lives. How do they start? Where do they end up? One of the researchers in this area is psychologist Jonathan Adler, who collaborated with Dan. Wow, okay, so it actually says Jonathan Adler and Dan McAdams, but if you can read that, then you're welcome to 2010, I think, in your vision. Dan McAdams was the pioneer in this emerging area of narrative psychology. So about the arc of our lives, Adler says, and I quote, "All lives have good and bad in them. Stories that start bad and end bad just don't feel great. And stories that start good and end good, those feel good. But what we find in the research is that where we draw connections between the negative and the positive matters a lot. So stories that we narrate as starting bad and ending good, we call that a redemption sequence. And stories that start good and end bad, we call that a contamination sequence." And that end quote. And what Adler makes clear is that it is not so much about naming what happened to us as objectively good and bad, but rather how we come to remember the arc of our story. Is it redemptive? Do we find ultimate good from bad, or is it contaminated in which the end is bad? So what McAdams, Adler, and others have found is that the kind of stories we tell is correlated with the lives we live. A New York Times article describes this, and I quote, "Those with mood problems have many good memories, but these scenes are usually tainted by some dark detail. The pride of college graduation is spoiled when a friend makes a cutting remark. The wedding party is wonderful until the best man collapsed from drink. A note of disappointment seems to close each narrative phrase. By contrast, the so-called generative adults, those who score high on tests measuring civic mindedness, those who are likely to be energetic and involved, tend to see many of the events in their life in reverse order, linked as themes of redemption. They flunked 6th grade, but then met a wonderful counselor and made honor roll in the 7th. They were laid low by divorce, only to meet a wonderful new partner. Often, too, they say that they felt singled out from very early in life, protected, even as others nearby suffered. End quote. But here's the thing. This is more than just correlation. There appears to be a causal link between the arc of the stories we tell and our mental health. Adler describes a study in which he worked with a number of people who were starting psychotherapy. Some of them were dealing with major issues, depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and others were just doing a little bit of work, like understanding how to be a better parent. And for the study, he collected their life stories at the beginning before they started, and then also measured their well-being using standard tools. And after they'd been in therapy some time, he observed that people's well-being improved. And that's not surprising. We know that therapy works in general. But he also noted that when he asked people to share their stories, the stories changed. They got more redemptive. Moreover, the changes in the stories seemed to happen before the changes in their well-being. As he put it, you tell the story first, and then you live your way into it. There's a certain amount of fake it till you make it, he says. Other studies seem to bear this out. The message is change your story and change your life. Now, some of you may be thinking, and I did too, that this seems to be just another version of what people now call toxic positivity. That is to say, it's just like Hollywood movies tell a redemptive story because that's what the box office demands. So we too need to tell a redemptive story if we want to fit into the modern culture. And I've even seen this kind of idea taken to harmful extremes. I remember another religious movement, not Unitarian Universalist, where a big part of the message was about breaking out of the so-called victim mentality. And if you couldn't break out of the victim mentality, well, it was on you. And I think the term blame the victim could correctly be used here. But there's another way to think about it. Writer Patricia Hampel suggests that there are two kinds of truth in writing about real life: the factual truth and the emotional truth. We don't have to change the factual truth in rewriting our stories. Facts are still real. But we can, and perhaps should, change our emotional truth in telling our story. So, change your story, change your life. For me, much of that change happened in therapy. Now, I've done my share of talk therapy in my life, whether full on with a psychotherapist or with a counselor or coach. And I've come to realize that much of the value in doing such therapy is in unearthing and understanding and often reframing the sometimes hidden stories of our lives. Sometimes I'd say something and the therapist would offer a different way to look at that thing, a reframe. And I'm not even sure the therapists were doing this consciously, wanting me to change my stories, but they offered an alternative that, that I, in my mind, either drawn down in sadness or spinning with anxiety, I just could not see. My wife, Liz, who has been an avid journal keeper all her life, and I think this comes with the territory of being a writer. And somewhere along the way, she began to wonder about what would become of the bookshelf full of old journals at the end of her life. She developed a practice which she called unjournaling, which is to go back through all of those old journals and mine them for what gems might be present there. Reviewing the journals was a way of reflecting on the arc of a life And in some cases, reading over the old journals reveals details that might change the narrative of the story in our lives. More deeply, this practice might cause us to look back on these life events with some distance and allow a redemptive story to emerge. And the rest of all those words written in those notebooks, the unimportant words, well, into the fireplace with them, with all the ceremony that they are due. Now, Liz has taught this unjournaling as a group workshop a few times. But as you can imagine, the target audience is small. You've got to have been doing journaling for some years, and you've got to be willing to go back and reflect on all that stuff, and maybe even toss some of those precious words into the flames. So it's a bit of a niche practice, but for those who did it, it was powerful. So over the past few years, I've been rewriting the story of my life and my early career in particular. Last year, I traveled back to New Jersey and visited with Liz and an old workplace friend to my old place of employment. This is Bell Labs' Homedale building, an iconic international-style building designed by the famous architect Eero Saarinen, who designed the Dulles Airport Terminal in Washington and the Gateway Arch in St. Louis, among other major projects. Now, this building had long been abandoned by what remained of Bell Labs, and in fact, trees were growing inside. And there were plans to raise it and replace it with McMansions. But our friend, among others, fought that plan, and the building is now on the National Register of Historic Places and has been repurposed with small offices, shops, and a community center. Visiting that site helped me define my own redemptive arc for that phase in my life. I reflected on the contributions I made as an engineer among engineers, as an individual contributor among many in that large research center. There was an egalitarian quality in that world. Heck, my job title, member of technical staff, matched that of all my non-management peers, and that was good enough. That story fit a particular era in America where everyone worked together to accomplish great goals. A time where, while individual talent was recognized, the common goal was paramount. It was a time before today's meritocratic culture, where everything now is driven by the profit motive, set in driving today's growing inequality in the 24/7 hustle attitude. My redemption was realizing that I was part of and contributed to a unique time in America, a unique culture, where we worked together towards true greatness as it was then. We see that the stories of our lives are malleable. They're changeable. They're not fixed in permanent form. And in fact, I wonder if those who contend that their life stories are solidly unchanging and who claim that they have only one true story, I wonder if these people are the ones who are stuck with problematic stories, contaminated arcs throughout their lives, as though they live lives of limited possibility and forlorn from hope. So let's rewrite our stories. Let's each of us do this editing consciously and mindfully. Let's see if we can find the gems in the events of the past. Let's see if we can claim what is good out of all those events of our lives and see what is positive in the decisions we made and the actions we took that have carried us to this point in our lives. Our stories are our own, so let's make the best of them by reframing them for goodness, possibility, and for hope. So now we're going to celebrate a ritual that gives us a very small taste of this rewriting activity. This is the burning bowl. A ritual that's often done in some circles at the turn of the year to release past events and to make space for new possibilities for the new year. But we'll enlarge the meaning from just this past year and this year and use the bowl to also let go not only just what happened last year, but also our larger stories that no longer serve us, that are problematic. And we'll also make ritual space to begin to think about chapters in a new narrative, maybe completely new, or maybe just some light editing of our old narrative. It doesn't matter. And some of you may want to focus on just the last year and the year to come. Others of you may want to consider the larger stretches of your lives. Either way, this ritual is for you. So we'll have a brief time for meditating on our stories and on past events and future possibilities. And during this time, we'll pass out writing instruments and 2 slips of paper. One is white. This is special paper for the burning bowl. And one is blue to keep with you. On the white paper, write down those items, events, feelings, even plot notes for your story that you want to release, to let go. On the blue paper, write down those future possibilities, hopes, maybe the storyline for a new arc that points toward what is good. And you at home, you might want to get a couple slips of paper and a pen or pencil and follow along. And at the end of the meditation, which will be about 5 minutes, we'll invite you to come up to the bowl and to release what you have written that you want to let go up into the universe. And then we invite you to, and we have tongs if you don't want to actually take a risk. And then you may want to take the blue paper home and place it somewhere where you might see it to remind you of revising your story. Maybe put it on your mirror, maybe use it as a bookmark, whatever works for you. Will the ushers please pass papers and pencils and pens now, and we'll have about 5 minutes of meditation. For a very brief, just a word or two is all. Yeah. White for last year or the past that you want to let go of. Blue for the future. And so as we're waiting for paper to come around, just take this time to reflect on our stories and how we might rewrite them. Oh, okay, okay. So now I'm going to invite you to come forward, and we'll try to do this kind of in somewhat organized way, maybe sort of row by row, I don't know, we'll see. And around the back of the table, so come this way, and then you can approach the bowl. You can either use these or your hand to place that white paper into the flame and release that past unhelpful bit in your life. And those that you're at home, you may want to also burn up your own slip of paper in your fireplace, barbecue grill, your gas burner, or wherever you can safely do it. And then I invite everybody to take the other slip of paper, the blue one here, or some of you have a white one, and put it where you'll see it, and so that you'll be reminded of the editing that you're doing on your new story. So I'll invite folks forward, maybe starting with the first couple rows of the front and right on around this way. Yeah, yeah. And if you have your pencil, you can drop the pencils off in here. Yeah, yeah. And so we have, with this flame, released part of our stories, that's parts that no longer serve us. We have let them go up into the universe, into all that is. We have made space for new parts of our stories, stories that we continue to craft, to revise, that we may better understand our place in the universe and our actions in this world. May it be so.
Okay. Our closing hymn is For the Beauty of the Earth. This is one of those hymns that loses its meaning if you sing it like a robot. That's what Minister Kimberly DeBush puts it. That's how she put it. I really wish everyone would take the breath as marked in the chorus. It's chorus of all, to thee we raise this, our hymn of grateful praise. It's actually more meaningful and beautiful. Please rise again in Borean spirit and join us in singing. And again, we'll be singing all 4 verses. Closing words is going now. What?
So today, I'm not making any changes for a new year, but I did want to close with a prayer. And this prayer is from Tim Jones, an Episcopal minister in Hendersonville, North Carolina, and it is called A Prayer for an Unremarkable New Year. May you enter into a stretch of uneventful, unhistoric months and meander through a long, slow, no big deal. May your praise to God start to resemble a holy Sunday morning yawn. May your days become so extremely unextreme that your anxiety begins to rust. I hope you forget what sirens sound like. I pray you struggle to recall the last time you had occasion to call something exceptional. May your schedule settle into such expected routines that even the birds will know when you're going to fill their feeders. May you walk into a room and say, I can't believe that I keep forgetting to turn the pages on this calendar. I hope your meals taste like something you've had before. I pray you'll have great difficulty meeting all of your deductibles. Friend, may you enter the peace of an even light, upward glances, and quiet footfalls moving forward steadily in the same direction. After the year you've had, you deserve the gift of getting to remember what it's like to be bored. Let it be so. Amen.
So let us distinguish our chalice with these words which we read together. We extinguish this flame, not the warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts and share. Just, okay. Okay, worship is over. Not, okay, yeah. Now, before I tell you it's over, I want to apologize to Kate, who I kept calling Claire, but there's a psychological reason for that. Anyway, our worship is over, our service begins. Go in peace and with a purpose. Thank you. Have a wonderful week.